Cheers.
You look great. I love your hair.
Oh, thanks.
Good afternoon. Welcome to I Brought You Into This World. I'm Amanda Hurley, and I'm here today with Whitney Cardosi.
Hi.
Welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Of course, of course. Now, so you are you a Beverly resident?
No,
Where do
I'm
you live?
Peabody, so
You're
North
Peabody?
Shore.
So you are a North Shore girl.
Yeah, I
Okay.
actually grew up in San Diego, but my husband is from the North Shore area, so we moved back here in 2013. So yes, it's been a while.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a beach girl through and through.
Oh, great. So being a beach girl, what was your childhood like growing up?
So my family's originally from Utah, but we moved to San Diego when I was 4. And so growing up there, you know, we actually had like the neighborhood growing up. So our neighborhood was the one that all the kids came to.
Yes.
We ran around all day. And, you know, I know that's something that us millennial moms are really nostalgic for right now. So I'm grateful to have like sort of lived that. But yeah, it was very similar to the North Shore, Boston area. Like we grew up going to the beach, of course. There we could do it year round. But, you know, rode around skateboards when I was in middle school. And,
Nice.
But otherwise, I mean, really, it's the same anywhere, I feel like, for the most part. So,
In a way, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the things that we do and all of that activities, you know, I did cheerleading, softball. We actually field hockey's pretty big in San Diego, which is rare because it's not as popular on the West Coast. But pretty standard childhood.
Yeah. Do you have siblings?
I do. So I have an older brother. So my parents divorced when I was in middle school, and my dad moved back to Utah after that. And then my brother followed a couple years later because he was going off to college, and he decided that he wanted to do that. So yeah, that was a tough time. It was a very cordial divorce with my parents, but still hard, you know, when you're in those tween years. I think that's why I'm really sensitive. My oldest is 10 and she's entering those years.
Yeah.
And so I'm really in tune to that because it was such a, you know, impactful time for me at that age. And so anyways, my brother's still in Utah and he has 2 daughters as well. So I have 2 daughters, he has 2 daughters. So we have 4 granddaughters on that side of the family. So lots of girls.
Oh, very nice. Your parents must love that.
They do. Yeah.
My parents would have all girl grandchildren too.
Do they?
Yeah. That's very sweet.
Yeah. So it's tough. You know, it's tough to not be close to my family, proximity-wise. Luckily, I have an amazing support system here with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law who actually have my kids right now because my husband's away. But so it is. It's you know, it's a struggle to, especially as a young mom, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. It was really hard not to have my own family here.
Yes, I can imagine. So,
Yeah.
And did you feel like growing up having siblings like, oh, I want this. I want to have kids.
Yeah, you know, it's
experience.
funny. My next door neighbor was my best friend, and she was one of 7. And so I was very envious of her big family.
Really?
Yeah, and they were all girls with 1 boy. They were separate fathers, so there was an age gap there. But so the closer age to us, there was 3. Anyways, so growing up, I always thought I was never one that like waited my whole life to be a mother. It was more of like just one day I know I will be a mother, but it wasn't same with like getting married. I was not one of those girls that like dreamed of her wedding.
Oh, you didn't really stress over it or think about it?
Yeah, it was more of just like it'll happen someday.
Yeah.
Of course, you know, that maybe mindset changed a little bit as I approached 30, but before that it wasn't a huge concern or anything, but I always knew I wanted kids. And for a long time, I always thought I would want more than 2. And then, you know, once you have one, it's a lot of times that changes. I think some people either think I could have more, and many people are like, this is enough. So
was it harder than you thought it would be?
Having
or
kids?
Not necessarily. Yeah.
I think that the like motherhood in the sense of losing your independence. And for me, the postpartum stage with my first in particular was really hard.
Oh my gosh.
Giving birth was actually not as hard or painful as I anticipated.
Wow.
And I would say like raising kids is hard, but not harder. But like that period of the emotional postpartum stage, not having my family, and then like losing the independence part was hard.
Yes. Well, so I like to talk about matrescence, which is kind of like adolescence. It's where you're who you are, then you go through this thing, and you're kind of a different person, but the same person.
Yes.
And so who did you think you were? Who did you feel like you were before having kids versus having kids? And what always remained the same for you?
I was a very independent person, and I think part of that was a combination of just probably my innate personality, but also, and my upbringing. But, when my parents divorced and my dad moved away, I think that really, I just became very independent, and my friends became really the most important thing to me in my life, because having moved to San Diego, I didn't grow up either with really cousins, grandparents, or anything like that. And so we didn't have that big extended family, of which is, I feel like, much more common here on the East Coast. Not for everybody, but more so than California, which is a very transplant state, especially San Diego. So, and then I also I had a boyfriend in high school and college, but most of my 20s I was single. So I just was very independent. And so I think that was an adjustment in the sense that now all of a sudden you can't just go do whatever you want when you have a baby, especially when you're nursing and things like that. I think the dynamic between you and your husband, because we also dated for a very long time, so our relationship was built on many, many years of just being us.
Oh, same, yeah.
We were very social, so I would say that was a struggle, but also something that was very important to us, and we continued even after having our daughter. So we were the couple that was bringing her everywhere, even as an infant.
Oh, good for you.
And we did our best to try to not let it, within reason, of course, keep us from leaving our house. And, it was a balance of keeping things like sleep schedules, but still not, still getting out and being social with our friends. And actually, most of them didn't have kids. And really many of them, I'm 44 just for reference, and my girls are 10 and 7. Most of them either still don't have kids or are just now. So we had friends that were single without kids, and we made sure to sort of like keep up with that then, as opposed to losing those friendships because we had kids.
It is not easy. And I think sometimes the misconception is that, well, I can't just invite them over. They don't want to spend time with my kids, but they do.
They do.
Your
we had
kids
a lot of
are
uncles,
part of you.
A lot of my husband's friends, because again, I didn't grow up here, and they loved it, and actually had so much fun. So it was really, really awesome.
You just have to let them in, let them into your life. And they don't, my friends anyway, they're great. Like they just come to me, like they kind of just assume that most of the time, I'll go out, I'll make it to a birthday party or whatever. But if they want to see me, they'll say, I'll come over and see you and the kids. And it's so nice because, it's hard to get them out.
That's very nice, because I feel like a lot of people don't have that mindset, and even grandparents sometimes.
It's very true.
That's awesome.
They want you to come to them. Now, when you say you lost your independence a little bit, is it that kind of thing of like, oh, if I want to do something by myself, I have to ask permission or find someone to watch the kids, or deeper than that? No, I think I'm a kind of a spontaneous person too. So it was just, there was no, I'm the type of person that wakes up on a Saturday, and if I don't have any plans, I just kind of see what happens that day. Oh, I miss that.
And so, there was no just like, oh, I think I'll go do a yoga class now, or, it was just, I think it was very, in a literal sense, I had to, there was more planning involved, there's no just getting out of the house in 2 minutes when you have a baby, if you're taking them with you. And there was that stress as well with my husband and I, because I'm sure most people can relate, especially if you have a husband who's a good partner, is finding that balance of that alone time, right? Like that give and take. Okay, I'm going to go take a yoga class, and then you can go to Home Depot later, those types of things that you didn't have to talk about previously.
Yes, we're just starting to figure that out, and my girls are too, so.
And then they get easier, and then all of a sudden it's like, there isn't that argument because it's not so stressful to take them with you. When they get to be that preschool age and they don't need to be home for a nap, or, I try to say that when I see I'm in those conversations with young mothers, meaning their kids are very young, that it does get easier, I think.
I can already see it starting to get easier. They're just more independent.
Yeah.
And they can tell you. They can tell you why they're upset.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is huge.
Like, getting in the car's a little easier, and they can walk around the store, and it's just.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, what was the most difficult for you? Or were they all difficult? Or were they all, not that bad?
Honestly, my pregnancies were great.
Oh my gosh.
I felt great through
I'm happy for you.
Yeah, I know. I feel very fortunate. I mean, for me, I never had morning sickness.
Wow.
My first trimester was mostly just very tired and fatigue. My first was not planned, but not a surprise either. She was, to give you some reference, was born 9 months to the day of our wedding. So it gives you some idea. And so that was nice. We didn't have any stress with trying. And my husband is, unlike me, very much a planner and things. So I think it was a blessing that we didn't plan it. It just happened. It forced us into needing to buy a house and all of those things that he would have really dragged his feet on. So yeah,
we did the same thing.
We were living with my mother-in-law the first couple years we were here. So that was nice. But no, I felt amazing in all of my both of my pregnancies. A little trauma with my first. It was a very long labor, but ultimately everything was fine. Second one, it was kind of like, I always joke my husband was going to go to the bathroom and they were like, you can't go because the baby's coming, and it was like 2 pushes and she was out. Yeah. And actually those births matched their personalities, which is funny. And then with my second, postpartum was much easier. I think just because I knew what to expect. And to be honest, I think I expected harder and was, it was easier, right? Yeah. She slept better, which changes everything. I think for most moms, she was a good sleeper right from the get-go.
That's awesome.
But I found having a second I found it fun because she had her sister to entertain her. Whereas with my oldest, I didn't know how to entertain children. I wasn't around my niece as much because they were in Utah. I wasn't around young kids a lot. And I found that hard, feeling like I needed to entertain her all the time.
Get monotonous after a while, even though it's fun.
It's like eat, play, nap, and it's just you're in this cycle. And so the postpartum journey for them was very different. I struggled a lot more with my first. In the moment, I had no idea that I was suffering from postpartum depression, but looking back now, I know I absolutely was. I thought it was circumstantial because I had just moved across the country. We literally, the first night we stayed in our home was the night we brought her home from the hospital. So I felt it was, not feeling nested in the home. We were still newly married. We were only 9 months married. I was ready to leave and divorce my husband because I just thought he was the worst person in the world.
Because
but now it was just hormones and it was postpartum, and they're figuring it out too. Men are still trying to figure it out, and they don't have the fortune of carrying a baby for 9 months and bonding with it.
That's true.
I think we have to remember that, and I certainly didn't in that time. And so we were just more equipped as parents with the second, we knew how to do it all. And so I was lucky with that. Now with my second, she was 18 months when the pandemic happened. So then toddler years was a little bit harder with her, but
that's interesting.
There's
just not a lot of awareness around postpartum anxiety and depression, other than that it can happen sometimes. But what does it look like? Who do you talk to?
Right. I read recently that it might have even been the podcast of yours that I listened to, but it was that if you are suffering from both postpartum depression, anxiety, OCD, whatever it may be, the problem is that the symptoms don't feel like symptoms. They just feel like who you are. And so I think that, I think most women are aware of it at this point, but when they're in it, they don't realize that they have it. When I've seen it in a friend, it's easy to say, I can tell that this is something that you're struggling with, but when you're in it, it's really difficult to discern between the symptom or the illness, for lack of a better word, and just it being who you are.
Yes, and I think that's why it's important really for your partner to learn about that stuff and brush up on it so they can see it in you, because you really aren't that self-aware and you're so invested in this little baby. You're trying to take care of them. we forget to eat, we forget to
Right.
shower. Like,
Yeah.
how are we going to think about let me think, do I maybe,
Yeah.
I don't
and you
know.
don't know what you need for help. You just
Yeah.
know you need help.
Yes. And we all do.
Yeah.
Anyway. So
Right.
it's hard to know. And also you have people telling you, oh, it's hormones, or you just had a baby. It's just postpartum. It's just this. It's
Yeah.
just that. And you're like, oh, I guess everyone feels this bad.
Yeah.
But no.
No, they don't.
No.
But many do. Yeah.
Many do. But it's downplayed a lot.
Yeah.
Women's mental
I
health.
also think it lasts much longer than people expect. I think people in their mind think postpartum is 3 months because that's what the average maternity leave has been up until this point. But the reality is it's many, many months and years. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's different for everyone, how long it will affect you.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely thought I was just like kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
Because I felt like a
mad
jerk
all the time.
Yeah, I'm mad about stupid things that, like that person's holding my baby for too long, or whatever it is, and because you just like you're so like mama bear, you're like that's mine.
Yeah, my silly thing was I would get so annoyed when I wasn't a Disney mom, and I would get so annoyed when my mother-in-law would buy Disney things, like pink things and Disney things,
because you're just not into it.
And but now looking back, I realize it was so much deeper than that, and now I've learned to just be grateful that I have someone who, loves my kids and gives to my kids.
Yes,
And not to say that there aren't boundaries and things like that, but looking back now at the amount of anger and rage that I felt about those silly things, you realize that was, a lot, probably a symptom of postpartum.
Yeah, it was not your fault. And hopefully people had grace with you. I know, like, I got an absurd amount of grace. Like, I was such a jerk.
Yeah.
And sometimes I still am. Like, I try really hard to be like, everyone does things differently. Like, just you got to appreciate the help that you're getting.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to do the same as you.
Yeah.
And,
It takes time. And I think that's where you have that older generation, for most of us boomers, would be like our parents, that have that hindsight, and it can be annoying and condescending feeling at times, but the reality is it truly does change, as you grow and you look back and you realize, oh, it really wasn't a big deal. So it's hard to communicate that, I think, as an experienced mom, without sounding condescending, but wanting to be reassuring.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
You don't have a lot of control over your mind. And now, was there any shift for you after becoming a mom? Did you feel like, did your interests change? Did you sort of change as a person?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that I was one of those people that, it's funny to give an easy example. So we adopted a dog in the spring. And prior to that, my husband and I really never were dog owners. Oh. And maybe when we were young kids, but never old, even, as adults. And you don't get it until you have it, right? And I never was annoyed with people posting about their dogs, but I didn't necessarily understand it. Yeah. And then once you have a dog, you're like, oh my God, I totally get it now, why you like do the things that you do. And I think that's similar with most moms, you know? And so I think I fought wanting to identify as only a mom for a long time, which I'm sure most women feel that way. And holding on to my identity as someone that wasn't just a mom. And now it's really what drives me in most things that I do.
Oh, I
including
100% relate to that.
Yeah, and I embrace it now.
It's like, why shouldn't the biggest thing that's ever happened to me be the thing that I'm passionate about? Right now or forever, whatever,
Right.
I think we're so hung up on how we identify ourselves, and we feel like it needs to be our job or some really cool thing that we do. And it's like, that's just something you do. That's not who you are. Yeah. If anything, I'm a mom more than I'm someone who works somewhere, that's all temporary.
I think the transition for me, I worked full-time in corporate environment with my first. Yeah. And then when I had my second, I was able to stay home and work from home and not in a corporate setting. And so that I wanted to make sure, I think, that I still had that working identity. And so I can have empathy for women that choose to stay home, whether they have any sort of paying job or not. because we still have this stigma in our country, at least, that you're less than if you're not bringing an income in.
Yes.
Which is so interesting considering our moms fought for that, you know, or our grandparents, depending on your age. And I think more than ever, we as women have more to balance than anything because we are trying to do it all. And so that was where that identity, I think, struggle for me happened, with wanting to make sure that I was still seen as someone who was contributing, not only monetarily, but, you know, in other ways to my family other than just being the mom. And which is silly to even say those words together. Just,
yes,
yeah.
it's much hard. It's a lot harder than a lot of jobs that you do get paid for.
100%.
Like part of me feels like if I was able to, I would be a stay-at-home mom. But also in the back of my mind, I'm like, that would be very draining. Like, I don't know, could I do it?
It terrified me.
Wouldn't know until I tried. But
yeah,
it's all hard, and there's nothing that's lesser than taking care of your family is contributing.
Oh, yes.
You're creating like future citizens that are going to do amazing things in the world. And if that's not enough, I don't know what is, you know.
It's the most important thing.
But you mentioned, like, you know, being a mom is not only enough in itself, but it inspired everything that you do comes out of that. So what came out of that for you?
Yeah, I think so much. So first and foremost, so when I left my job to stay with my second, that was because previous to that, the previous 3 years, I had been building a nutrition coaching business on the side, for lack of a better word. And that started because of my postpartum journey and wanting to get healthier after having my first. And at some level, yes, part of it was losing weight, but more so, I was coming home from work, picking her up from daycare, cooking dinner, and I didn't have the energy to have fun with her. And that was more important to me than anything. I wanted to eat in a way that was, of course, going to help support my weight and my health, but I wanted more energy. And so learning to do that for myself is ultimately what brought me down that road. And so I did that for many years, and that's ultimately what allowed me to leave my corporate job. And then when every stage of their life, almost, it has transitioned my business life. So when my youngest went to school full time, I always knew and anticipated that time that I would bring something else into my work life, if you will. And over a couple years of trial and error, I ultimately landed where I am now, which is teaching cooking classes. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But the reason I chose that avenue was because I had the time, because now my youngest was in school full time.
Yes. And
not just for 2 hours twice a week. And so now not only did I have more time, but I had more of my brain back, you know, like didn't have fragmented attention span, because I was trying to be with her and work at the same time, literally at the same time. But also as my oldest got older, so at this point we're talking about 21, 22 maybe, and my oldest was in that sort of entering those tween years. So she was 9 years old, and I was starting to realize that I needed to focus more attention on what I was feeding her, because I knew she was going to be getting to that stage where her hormones were changing, and she was more active in sports and activities, and I wanted to make sure I was supporting her. And so I started having conversations with her about it, and more than being like, okay, this is what you need to eat. It was more trying to educate her on how what she ate affected how she felt, both physically, but more so mentally and emotionally. And I saw it really having an impact on her. And that's what inspired me to sort of want to do that with more kids. And as we spoke about earlier, the conversations I was having with my adult female clients, I was realizing most of them were probably in their 30s or early 40s. And I was realizing that their struggles weren't about needing someone to tell them what to eat. It was really trying to unwire their relationship with food. And as a product of the 80s and 90s and the low fat, low sugar era, and, you know, all of those things, we learned a lot of crazy things, and we developed a lot of crazy ideals around our body and our health. I grew up reading 17 magazine and Cosmopolitan magazine. And I just realized that these poor women were, and myself included, it's really hard to unlearn things when you're 30 and 40. And so if we could start having this conversation with girls and boys when they were younger, I forget how you said it earlier, but catch them while they're young.
Catch them while they're young,
then hopefully that journey of their relationship with their body and their health and food would be a little easier for them. And that was really my inspiration.
Yeah, those teen years.
Yeah, they're on the horizon for us.
Anything you can do to counter the hormones. Even like today, it's like if I eat well and I'm like exercising, then my mental health is just like that much better.
Yes, and that's really what I try to talk about with my kids, meaning my own children, but also my students, is making the correlation between how food affects how we feel. Because I believe if they truly understand that they have the power to affect their energy levels and their feelings of joy and things through food, of course, other elements as well, but largely through food.
In a positive way, yeah.
Yes, that the whole physical side of it will follow suit. So the obesity epidemic that we have and the body image, if their focus is more on, let's just eat foods that make me feel good.
That's
the tricky secret is the foods that make you feel good are the healthy foods. And then that will have that positive side effect. Also, I mentioned growing up on things like Cosmopolitan magazine. So I got that once a month. Our kids now have by the second.
You're
with
right.
social media,
it's like,
they're being told, what they should look like and what they should eat. And so, I obviously don't have a national platform, but my goal is I can speak to kids in our community, and then that would have a ripple effect, beyond just that. And so that when they see something on social media, they can maybe distinguish between what might be just marketing and what might be really healthy.
Yes. And we could talk a little bit about the Bloom retreat, but I see you have daughters, but there's a bit of a focus on like the preteen daughter and mom, that mother-daughter relationship. And I feel like, first of all, the food stuff and the body image stuff, it starts with the mom for sure.
Yes.
Is that part of it? What is it about the mother-daughter bond or relationship that you feel is so important?
Absolutely. So I knew I wanted to do something bigger than the cooking classes and bring in some other elements that weren't specifically just to cooking and food. And I, having been a solopreneur for 10 years, I know so many women that could contribute to my network through other topics like therapists and things that can speak to that on a more professional level. And so I wanted to be able to bring some of those women into a room and speak to the girls. But what I didn't want was the moms to just drop the girls off and be like, here, go learn something,
right? Because they
but not
have
learn anything
things
themselves.
to learn. Yes.
So you hit it on the head. That was the secret inspiration was, on the surface, it was an opportunity for moms to bond with their daughters and those types of things. But really, my secret agenda was so much of what we were going to be talking about, these moms needed to hear as well.
It's so important.
And that's why we do it that way.
Moms can tell their daughters over and over how wonderful and beautiful they are, but if they're calling themselves stupid and ugly and their daughters overhear it, that undoes a lot of it.
Yeah. And not even the words. Like, I'm pretty mindful, for example, if I'm trying an outfit on and I'm looking in the mirror, just simply to see what it looks like. I try not to do that too much in front of my girls. Not that there's anything wrong with checking your appearance, but I don't want them to see me looking at the side and those types of things. And those, I'm not perfect by any means, but I am mindful of that. I've also, through being a solopreneur and a mom, I've been on my own sort of self-development journey for the past 10 years. And you don't have to be in business to do that or anything. But, I learned so much more so recently than anything post-pandemic about our nervous system and how that works. And that had such a huge impact on me as a mom, being one that went from being filled with rage a lot and screaming and really going to a dark place. And learning to manage that both through nutrition, but also through nervous system management. And there's a lot of moms out there that don't know about those topics. And so when we were having this retreat and I knew we were going to be talking about things like that with the girls, I knew the moms needed to hear that. just as much, if not more, than the girls, and they don't all have access to that otherwise. So again, another reason why I just knew that there were things there that the mothers needed to hear just as much as the girls.
Well, you can get parents to help themselves by tricking them, by telling them it's for their kids.
Exactly.
They'll do anything for their kids, but not always for themselves.
100%. And I knew that as a nutrition coach, seeing what mothers would invest in. They will drop $300 on a kid's activity, and there's nothing wrong with that.
But not for themselves.
But not themselves. And so again, why I really tied the two together.
And that can be taken advantage of. There's a lot of exploitation of all the kids want this toy. You need to get it for your kid.
Club sports and for-profit, those types of things where you get convinced as a parent that your child will be behind. And there's a lot of exploitation of that.
To use that power for good to, help get the parents to work on themselves and feel better and healthier by telling them, it's for your kids.
Yes,
it's going to help your kids.
Yeah.
I love that being flipped around a bit. Now, now that you've, been a parent for 10, do you say 10 years now?
Yeah, my oldest is 10.
Do you feel like you're like, oh, I'm myself now, or like a new version of yourself? Do you feel like you've landed somewhere, or just always?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, I feel confident in myself as a mom. I feel like I do a good job, not to say I'm not flawed by any means. I think also I'm someone who is, to me, being real and not feeling phony is really, really important to me. And so someone who is, I'm very public, right? Like I'm on social media a lot, both because that's my personality. I was that way prior to working, owning a business, but also because of my business. And I found myself feeling as though I was sort of being put in this corner of like being this perfect person that, I was always eating healthy, or, that I didn't yell at my kids or any of those things. And to whether that was a reality or just my own feeling, I didn't want to feel that way. And so I try to on social media be very real and raw. My house is messy most of the time. Like I say swear words around my kids. We go to the McDonald's drive-through, but it's so important, I think, for women who are consuming this information around health and nutrition to know that that doesn't mean all the time.
That's important.
Or perfection. And that balance is really is important, and that just because you don't have what together, you're still worthy and valuable. And so you had asked, if I felt like I landed, and I do. I feel like for me, it's really important I take being a mom is probably my number one priority in anything, especially with what we have going on in the world right now.
Yes.
My focus is on, we have to keep these kids healthy in body and mind, but also being a representation for all moms. And very few of us are Pinterest perfect, Instagram perfect mothers. If not, none of us are.
And that doesn't help your kids. Your kids don't know. My husband was away for 3 days, and I was like, I'm going to order pizza and let them eat the pizza in their playhouse outside. And then I'm going to put TV on. And they were like having a ball.
Yeah.
They were like, ooh, let me just settle in.
My husband goes away a lot. We have a little fixer-upper in Maine, and so he goes up there a lot on the weekends to work on it. Yeah. And the girls know when Dad goes, we go to Chipotle for dinner, and we watch a movie, when we get home. And they love it, And I think we have to, if there was one thing I would have told myself, I wish I knew when my girls were younger, was that every little thing wasn't going to completely impact their life. Like, yes, it is important to eat healthier more often than not. It is important to be positive and kind with your kids, hopefully more often than not, and those types of things. But just to know that, like, pizza in the playhouse once in a while isn't going to completely destroy and undo everything else that you're trying to do as a mother.
Not that I haven't done that before many times.
Right, but
you're doing your best, and nobody needs actually, like, for kids to see perfection is somewhat damaging even.
Yes.
For them to think, now I have to be that good of a mother when I grow up, or I have to be as together as my mother is. No. Yeah. you're just doing your best, and your intentions are there. You understand what helps your kid, what makes them feel good, and you're trying to do it as much as possible.
Yeah, and it's just as important to bring joy into your house as it is everything else. And that's another thing I talk about a lot with dinner and food is, when we talk about things like comfort foods, and maybe they're not quote unquote the healthiest foods, but is that also contributing to your overall mental health if you're sharing it with friends and family, or maybe you have a tradition of eating something really indulgent on the holidays.
Comfort food.
But imagine the other benefits to your life that it's giving you by sharing those experiences. So I think we have to remember that, and it's so easy now with determining food based on its macros, or it's all a number to so many of us, but it's not. It's so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Well, I think I have one more question for you. If you could pick one thing, one piece of advice to give new moms for their mental health, just for their overall well-being, what is the first thing that they should do when they're thinking about having a kid or after the fact? Is there one thing that either helped you or that you wished that you had done?
I would say it's probably not original at all, but I would say take care of yourself first. I think the difference between my first and my second, just a very simple example, the way that I ate with my first versus my second, I wasn't eating with my first because I just simply felt like I didn't have time. I mean, I was eating, but it was like all of a sudden I would just have to eat a whole bowl of goldfish because that was all I had time.
Made yourself secondary.
Yes, and with my second, I figured ways, I knew much more. I had been on my own health journey at that point for 3.5 years, and so I knew more. I knew that, taking the time, even if it was to make a protein shake, was not only supporting my ability to nurse her, for example, but I needed that energy to support my 3.5-year-old and my baby.
Yeah.
And so I know it's very cliche and not original, but I think it's just knowing that the old adage of you can't pour from an empty cup. And again, I know it's very cliche, but it is a reality, and that it has to be the first thing. And that's still what I preach to this day, especially when I was coaching adult women, still through nutrition, was if you aren't supporting yourself through nutrition, you won't have the mental and emotional capacity to show up the way that you want to for your kids and your family or your work or whatever it is that you do. And I think that is just the number one thing. Oh my gosh,
that's so hard. I'm still working on that, so we'll have to chat.
Yeah.
It's like you try to eat before or at least during the time that your children are eating, because I don't, and then I forget. I either eat way too late, like it's 8 o'clock at night and I can't digest it properly, or I completely forget.
Yeah.
You just do.
Well, I will say one thing that many of your listeners might want to hear, the idea about eating together as a family. I think a lot of us feel pressure around that, and it is very important. And actually I'm reading a book right now called Untangled, which is about more so teen girls. And they talked about this research around the impact that it has on girls' confidence, boys too, their confidence and their mental health, having that family time. But what they said, which I thought was really amazing, was number one, even if it's just once a week, it makes an impact.
That's true.
And even if you're just in the same room. So if your kids are eating at the kitchen table and you're in the kitchen with them preparing food or something, but not sitting with them, that still has an impact.
Okay.
So it is very important, but it doesn't have to look as perfect as most of us think that it does. And yes, and also that there's phases in life, right? There's going to be periods of time where you are able to sit down and have dinner together, and then there's going to be 2 months later, all of a sudden your schedule changes and you can't, and that's okay. But yeah, as long as you're trying to support yourself first, it's going to help everything.
And I just want to say, I know we're talking a lot about, where we are now and finding yourself again and getting into these healthy habits, but it is also okay if you're in a period where you're still struggling to do that, or you don't know who you are, no matter how long it lasts.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I'm hoping is that we can create a community where you can then go to other women and find those resources that you need and get on track. But it is okay to not be okay.
Nothing is permanent. Everything is temporary. I didn't go to the gym this summer, and I really haven't gotten back to it yet. And 5 years ago, I probably would have titled myself as someone now who was a failure or who didn't work out. Now I realize I'll get there, and you know, and the season of life when it is ready.
Oh
to do
yeah,
that.
and there's the thing called survival mode,
Yeah.
and it's totally okay to be in survival mode as long as you recognize, like, okay, now it's time to take care of me.
Yeah.
You know, so well,
Absolutely.
thank you so much
You're
for being on the
welcome.
show.
This was awesome. Cheers.
And thank you for watching. I brought you into this world. I brought you into this world, and I matter too. Have a good day.